Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this short presentation on 5 compelling reasons to use brand preference. Within MASB, we oftentimes get asked about which marketing and financial metrics to use for different applications, but no metric gets more inquiry than brand preference. This is because brand preference has become a standard used for many applications, monitoring brand performance, testing advertising effectiveness, and most recently with the release of ISO 20671 as a cornerstone metric in brand evaluations and valuations. So, what exactly is brand preference? Here is the definition from the official Common Language Marketing Dictionary. Please note three things: it is a measure of brand strength, it is customer focused, meaning those active in the category, and it is comparative between brands showing which people truly prefer outside of other factors. This last point is unique. Other measures of brand strength treat the brand independent of competitive context. For example, your awareness of Pepsi isn't impacted by your awareness of Coca Cola. But with preference, it is a trade off. Before we explore the 5 reasons brand preference is so useful, I want to give a little background into a major study sponsored by MASB, the Brand Investment and Valuation Trials. This was the largest consistent exploration to date into the link between brand strength and in market outcomes, and we will use the information from this study to illustrate some points. The study ran for 18 months and included 120 brands competing within 12 diverse product categories. This included brands with products whose prices ran from 30 cents up to $35,000. Some categories had few brands, while others were highly fragmented. Purchase cycles went from those typically bought weekly to others which are purchased after several years. And some products were apt to spontaneous choices, while others were very deliberative and included several decision influencers. For these brand and financial marketing metrics were gathered. Brand preference was provided by MSW Research, and other marketing metrics were provided from each marketer from their proprietary systems. Samples were of a very robust size. The first thing this trial showed was just how powerful brand preference is in explaining actual sales volume. As you can see by the chart on the left, that across the 12 categories and 120 brands, each of those little dots represents one brand. Brand preference showed a near linear relationship to unit market share with a correlation of 0.88. The charts on the right are the same 120 brands broken into their respective categories, showing just how consistent this was across all of them. Simply put, higher brand preference equates to more sales. In the initial trials, we promised to blind the data, but subsequently, the same analysis was done for some categories we can share. As you can see, in all of these cases, the correlation was above 0.90. Note how for search engines, a category where the offerings are free and available to everyone, how preference essentially perfectly explains the choices made. The second key finding from the study was the interaction between brand preference and price premiums. Higher brand preference supports price premiums. This graph illustrates this relationship. When a brand grows its preference, a choice can be made. The brand can convert all of that additional preference into market share, shown by the green line. Alternatively, it can maintain that same market share and raise its prices, thus increasing margins, shown by this red line. Or it could do some combination of the two, as shown by the yellow line. On the other hand, a brand which is losing preference will have a challenging time maintaining its share without lowering prices. Here's a classic case study which illustrates this point. At one time, the Eveready and Duracell brands of batteries had similar unit sales and share. But as the category grew, Duracell was able to break away from Eveready and capture a larger share of market. How did it do this? By growing its brand preference through compelling advertising. Duracell advertising caused larger shifts in brand preference than that for Eveready. After 10 years, this resulted in Duracell having a 20-point lead in brand preference. The brand chose to split this between market share and price premium with a 9% higher unit market share and a 19% price premium. Now, here is the interesting part. Both brands went up for sale shortly after that 10-year period. Duracell sold for nearly 3 times what Eveready did. We will get into brand valuations later. A third finding from this study was that brand preference was the most predictive of the approximately 70 brand strength metrics. Here are 7 other strongest measures from the 6 categories for which we had corresponding data. As you can see, brand preference explained 20% more of the differences in market share than the next closest one. Also, brand preference shows strong relationships in all categories, while this was not the case for the other measures. What is also interesting is that when you look at their relationship to preference relative to their relationship to share, it can be seen that brand preference captures their explanatory power. In other words, these metrics have value in that they build preference, which then drives sales. This is why some commentators have dubbed brand preference the one metric to rule them all. Another benefit of brand preference is that it gives brand owners real options. These are opportunities that the brand can choose to undertake, which they otherwise wouldn't be able to. This often comes in the form of expanding the brand into other segments and categories. As an example, Apple built up large preference as a computer brand early in its life, but the associations underlining that preference were leverageable to many other categories, some of which Apple itself created. So Apple now represents computers, cell phones, tablets, watches, and even retailing of music and software. A fifth compelling reason for using brand preference is that it fuels accurate brand decisions. Because it captures the impact of all branding activities and that of its competitors, it is the best metric to use in brand evaluations and valuations. In effect, it translates marketing into intermediate category financials and internal financial metrics for the firm, including ultimately cash flow. In this way, brand preference gives confidence to how likely cash flows are going to continue into the future, which is the basis of many brand valuation approaches. This table is a blinded example from a company with a portfolio of brands within this category. It shows 3 of their brands. Notice that for brand B, brand preference is considered currently very weak and falling among younger consumers. This translates into little confidence for the long-term cash flow for the brand, so no brand value is assigned, and management is making a decision to make only minimal investments into it. There are very real consequences for brands that lose preference. So here is a summary of the 5 compelling reasons to use brand preference. Higher brand preference leads to more sales. Higher brand preference supports premium pricing. Brand preference is the most predictive brand strength metric and captures the impact of other metrics. Brand preference creates real options, and brand preference fuels accurate brand decisions. There are several others we don't have time to review today, but hopefully just these will provide perspective on why brand preference has become a standard. Thank you for your time.